Welcome, ladies and gents. This is our second episode of the podcast here. We've got a couple of great guys to talk about Wrath of the Lich King. We're going to be hitting up subjects such as the pre-patch content, our experience for that, the first raid tier, raid tier 7, going into Wrath of the Lich King, and a few things in the mix there, such as server pop and a variety of other issues that have come up during the pre-patch. So, gentlemen, if you could take this opportunity to introduce yourselves and let people know the primary platform that they could find you on, please do.
Yeah, I'm Raz. You can find me on Twitch at RazzeronTV. I stream Classic WoW, do some variety games. That's where you can find me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Flame.
Hey everybody, it's Flamestryketv. Also, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Flamestryke. Also a Classic WoW streamer. You can catch me there.
And I'm Alodar. I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and you can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Alodar 6 nights a week.
Excellent, guys. So the first thing that we wanted to bring up today to talk about, and it's the span of time we've had since the first episode, is we'll be covering the pre-patch and the pre-patch content that we've all had an opportunity to experience now. I mean, as far as it went, what did you guys do with your time? I mean, did you guys make death knights? Did you guys, work on professions or switching things or leveling new characters? I mean, what kind of things were you taking advantage of that was going on during that time frame?
I haven't started professions yet, but I've been concentrating on, because I was leveling characters. I was getting my hunter to 70 because it wasn't 70 yet, and I made a death knight. I've got that to 70, and I've been pretty much just been doing AV on the hunter and the death knight just to gear it up. Everything else I haven't really thought of. I've done some of the event stuff, but other than that, I've just been grinding the AVs. That's pretty much all I've done so far.
Yeah, that's something I spend a lot of time. I mean, as most of the people that have been following my community know, that I wanted to be maining the Death Knight for Wrath of the Lich King, so I've spent my time leveling the Death Knight up, working on his professions somewhat. I still don't have them rounded out, but I did personally do a lot of time in the BGs as well, which is fun for me to do the BGs, and it's also fun to be getting on those upgrades. And the upgrades being that they've made Season 4 Glad Gear available to everybody by simply losing in Battlegrounds over and over again.
I've actually been really busy. Our raid is still raiding every Tuesday, both Sunwell and Black Temple. Our second raid is getting started up again, so they're going. I've also, I've gotten all the Brutalis sets for one druid and one mage already, and I'm working on my second druid that I since pre-patch started. I've leveled from 1 to 65 so far, and I'm leveling the last 10 levels in AV, so I can have all the honor for the entire Brutalis set once I'm done. And we've got a week left. I've also been leveling up unfortunately a gnome rogue. I've got to get that done though. That's kind of a sub goal that I had.
I was gonna say, did you get that from like a sub goal, or you had it up there and you're like, oh, it's never gonna happen, and your community said no, you can level the rogue?
No, it's gonna happen. I will finish leveling the gnome rogue, but it doesn't have to be done right this second, but it will get
Good
done.
old Agnes.
Yeah, Agnes. Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
I've been busy. I've actually been really busy with pre-patch. We've still got 2 or 3 spots left for our raid. We've had a bunch of our main raiders, or several of the main raiders, that have swapped classes, a lot of them to DKs. We went into the pre-patch with 6 shamans, and right now we're standing at 0 shamans because they've all swapped to different mains. So we're one of the few raids that we're actually looking for a resto shaman right now to fill our raid team. But I had thought that shamans were going to be easy to come by because of a lot of them were going to be losing the raid spots. So
yeah, that's kind of busy, gentlemen. And that's what made so many people want to switch away from shaman for your team. Do you find out why? Was it something to do with the fact, like you said, a bunch of them made DKs and stuff? Was they just simply wanted to play the Death Knight, or was there alternate reasons behind that you're aware of?
Sorry, one sec. Dad's gonna have to wait. Can you guys? Let's see. Of the 6, one of them is swapping to our weekend raid, and 4 of them are just swapping to different classes. So one of them was top healing, like straight up 99 parsing Resto Shaman. He's switching to Holy Paladin. And we have one Shaman who's not going to be raiding in Wrath. It's not going to be playing. And I think 3 or 4 of them are swapping to DKs. So,
gotcha. So just a combination of game stuff and
yeah,
and people wanting to get their hands on the DK action.
Yeah, DK was the main one, but we had one of them. He asked us what we wanted him to play, and I said, we actually kind of need one more DK. So he would have stayed as Resto Shaman if we asked him to, but he's a really good player, and I felt like it was going to be easier for us to find a Resto Shaman than a really good DK, because you don't really have logs. You're going based on their past performance in other classes, so it would have been easier for me to determine whether someone was a good Resto Shaman player than a good DK player. But
somebody just pointed out that Stormfrax looks very different, and
yes, I noticed that too.
And I did not have a nameplate made for him.
He's got an accent too. What's going on here?
I
custom retro.
We've gone international.
RazzeronTV right here. Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry guys. There, it'll do for now. It's a patch on the wound there, but yeah.
Don't forget the E.
Where's it go? What did I do? Did I spell it wrong? Is it RazzeronTV, right?
ERON.
ERON.
Razzeron.
Thank you. Sorry. So that said, did you guys participate in any of the invasion stuff for the pre-patch? Did you guys do any of the events, gathering the gear, or the plague event, that kind of stuff? And what was your take, or what happened, or what would you think of it?
First of all, I also started leveling a Paladin and went out of my comfort zone for pre-patch, and got full brutal gear, and now I'm working on my hunter, which I changed to survival, which I had never played, since original. And also I did a lot of the event stuff. Me and Shadow Turkey ran it quite a bit. Raz did some of those as well. And I got the entire hunter set. It was a lot easier this time around than it was last time, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I ran some of it with Flame and Turkey. At first, I was like, because I hadn't done it before, I was like, I'll go to Winter Spring. This was like 7 a.m. server time, because it was like midday where I was. I was like, I'll look for these. Saw Summon in a circle. Couldn't find anything there. I was like, oh, whatever. Logged out. Logged back in that night. Surrounded by all the enemies. I just got murked. But then found a group with Turkey, Flame, got some done. As soon as I left, plate dropped.
Yeah,
that's just my luck.
That was Raz's luck. Raz goes, I'm leaving for the night, and as soon as he left, the plate dropped for Turkey.
Yeah. I feel like those pieces...
We killed a rare in the drop.
Yeah, I feel like those pieces are more of like a collected for the fact that you've done it, because you look at them and like they're okay when you're fighting undead, but the pieces themselves I didn't think were really that strong, which is one of the reasons I didn't personally go after, trying to do those. But I did take some time, and I tried to do the plague event, which was... I was very, very disappointed with the way it played out, because I felt like, I remember it being everywhere back in the day, like people getting, just dying, and the cities were graveyards basically. And I went down to Booty Bay, got the plague. I was like, I'm gonna take it up to Stormwind and pass it around there and give everybody this nasty disease and try to wipe out a corner of the city or something. And it turned into a much more disappointing scenario where I got to the city, and then I realized all of the guards had been raised to level 75, so you can't really get past them without either getting dismounted or getting, a bunch of substantial damage. And I couldn't do anything. And then I'm like, well, you can't heal, you can't drink, you can't eat once you turn into a zombie. And I just died at the entrance to Stormwind. It was exceptionally underwhelming to me. I'm like, this is not at all what I expected it to be. And I was thinking it was going to be more like, go in there and start puking all over the guys and turning them into infected persons. But it was nothing like that. I don't know if you guys did any of that or participated. I know we got someone in chat that's saying that they were very upset about it because it didn't work that way very well for them either. But
I didn't participate willingly. Actually, I might preface by saying that I didn't participate in it willingly. I had said on stream that I was going to, but then I never did. And then I just overall, I know I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer here, but I just found the overall invasion kind of irritating, to be honest. Like, I was trying to level my druid as fast as I possibly could. I'd go to Orgrimmar, and the flight path, the entire tower was just infested with all these zombies. I couldn't even get up to get a flight. I was trying to get to like Daenerys or something like that, and I couldn't fly out of anywhere. So you've got to run to the closest flight path from Orgrimmar. It's a little bit of a hike in order to get there, and then I ran basically all the way over to Crossroads, only to find out that flight path was also had zombies all over it as well. So anytime you got anywhere near it, but I thought it was fun for about half an hour, and then after that I was like, okay, this is getting old and it's just kind of a nuisance now. So I stopped. I never I wanted to participate and get all the items that are only available at this time, but I just found with everything else that I was doing, I was just too busy to actually really bother. And then they ended it suddenly. They ended it early, actually, I believe.
It started early too, didn't
because it crashed. The server crashed. That's why. And then they couldn't get it to work properly, and they basically disabled it.
Well, I think a lot of
they
people
couldn't get their coding to work properly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were just ultimately complaining as well. And I think they just said, okay, people aren't. I don't think people seem to be enjoying it as much this time as they were the first time that it happened.
It's a little interesting to hear your experience is slightly different in that, because I didn't see really much of that going on. I don't know if it was a time frame or the servers, because I'm playing on Mancrick the PvE and you're primarily playing on PvP server, whether that had any impact on the mentality of the players that were involved with it, or if it was just simply that just happened to be your server. Because I saw like there was a few corpses around the PvP master and stuff later on when I was there, and there was a couple of people that had the infection when they showed up, but it was like everyone was just cleansing it, and that was kind of it. It wasn't like really a big deal. But
there was 30 zombies at the top of the Orgrimmar like tower, the flight tower. Basically, like you could not get.
Were they all trolls?
Well, the thing is, that's what I was looking to do. I was hoping there was going to be more of that.
They were just wandering. They were just wandering like NPCs basically. Like you couldn't get near the flight master without getting infected. So
the thing is, I think the people will get more annoyed with it as well because of the fact that maybe because of the buff, the leveling buff, more people want to be leveling characters, and they find that that's annoying them more. That they're not able to when.
That's why it was. Yeah, that's why it was annoying me, because I was trying to speed level my druid as fast as possible, and I'm trying to get places, and I couldn't use the flight master and take off to go where I needed to go in a hurry. So
yeah, that's actually
you know, it's
kind
one of the
interesting.
things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
I thought it was one of the things in original. I thought they couldn't be dispelled. I remember having that on my mind for some reason, that originally you couldn't dispel the debuff when you got it, so you automatically turned into a zombie. And I think that created more, or there was some kind of level requirement or whatever to be able to dispel it, and people weren't doing it. But now, I mean, even on my Paladin, I was just dispelling it off everybody. You know, it was, not effective at all.
Did so I guess kind of moving on from that. I mean, did any of you guys end up boosting any attunes at all? If you're willing to admit it or not. I know it's certain points of the community people frown upon that, but a lot of people I know still do it anyway.
I haven't decided whether I'm going to yet. If I am, I would most probably boost another Warlock or something. I'm not going to boost a character I don't really know how to play, but I haven't decided yet because I want to concentrate on either my Death Knight or my Hunter. I don't want to have too many high levels. But...
Gotcha. I've always kind of been an adamant fan. Like I'm not pro boosting it in that regard, just simply because I feel like it. I just don't like it on the premise as a whole. But I know that they do certain things, and like I said many times, I want one company to make money, but I want them to make money because they're doing good things, and I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing, but they do it anyway. And I was just curious about that. I mean, any of you guys have any other comments or opinions or thoughts on that section?
Like I said, I'm a big leveler too, and I leveled 8 tunes to 60 for pre-patch, and I figure if I'm going to do anything, I'll just level one of those to 70 and go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't think of anything else that I need as a class. I think I had 970s or something like that, and I mean, I can always use leveling as content for my stream as well. So, I mean, I could boost something, but I just don't have any idea of what I would boost at this time. I'm not saying I won't do it, because I said I wouldn't do it for TBC, and then I went and used both of them because I wanted a druid to PvP with on another server, and so I boosted the druid. But now the characters that I'd use to transfer over to another server to PvP with, you know, I'm like big on transferring to servers that have a very low faction, or very imbalanced faction, or very imbalanced faction wise, and I like to go to the lower pop side. But I just transfer a character there now. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd boost a character. So
Gotcha.
Perfect time to go to Benediction, Alodar.
it's about that time. Yeah.
Some of the I wonder too, some of the reason they offer those, right? You know, like the company as a whole does need to make money, but do you think that there's that many people that are truly coming back to play for Wrath? I mean, you know, kind of this, and rotating to the next segment that we want to discuss is just the server population issues, right? So, you know, these characters coming back that are people are boosting. Like, I know there's several people that haven't played for a minute, and they've come back and they decided that they want to boost a character so they can get back into it without having to do the leveling, and then, you know, been taking advantage of the PvP opportunities with the 50% boost on honor gains, and then just getting brutal glad gear, which, I mean, again, it's a catch-up mechanic of sorts for people, so they can go in, they can get some very well statted gear. It's not PvE gear, or not gonna, you know, take you all the way to 80 necessarily, but I have found some people doing that. Do you guys think that that's had an impact or encouraged players to come back? And do you think that that's impacted or how do you think that's impacted the populations on servers?
I think it's opened the door to allow people to come back. I mean, boosting to me is not really, you know, playing the game. It's just basically a means to an end. And I think people that have been away for years and decide to come back in Wrath, okay, they're going to take advantage of the boost because, like you said, they don't want to level. But for the dieharders, the people that really love Classic for what it is, I think they're going to be the ones to come back and actually level their tunes, and, you know, and enjoy it.
I think there's a lot of people that are coming back for Wrath. It's going to be. I know I've had this debate on my stream before, and I couldn't believe I was having this. I thought I was being trolled, but the person was being serious. Wrath is going to be way busier than TBC, and it won't even be close. So, I think there are a lot of people that are coming back that maybe they played something else in vanilla, but they want to play something new in Wrath. And I think a lot of people they're just kind of done with leveling. They don't want to have to go through the whole leveling experience and stuff again. And they'll boost the character whether they're a fan of Classic or not. So if they're coming back fresh, I know I probably I might, if I wasn't a streamer, couldn't use this stuff for content, I'd probably consider boosting myself.
You said that's actually a good point there, because I'm sitting here while you're talking about the way you kind of would approach the view on that if you were coming back to play. If I hadn't played for the past, you know, X amount of years and had my characters lined up and everything else, you know, fresh start, one of my buddies calls me and says, "Oh my God, man, they're doing Wrath of Lich King. You should come play with us." Like, yada yada yada, whatever. I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to level. I ain't got time. He's like, dude, just buy a boost, right? Like, if you buy it and you come back to play with your friends and stuff, that's actually a huge thing. You know, that would be a very, very big appeal, I think. So, you know, that does make a lot of sense there, and as well when you think about it that way.
Yeah, because not everyone. If someone hasn't been playing the game for a while and they come back and it's like, oh, it's Lich King, then they're not going to want to level through the Barrens or whatnot. They want to get into Northrend, especially if their friends are there. So I reckon a lot of people will be using the boost, whether they're diehard Classic players or not. The boost would be there. It's easy. It's the easy way just to get to the end game.
Yeah, it definitely has. I think it had an impact. I mean, we can clearly see, like, all the news. You've been following the blue posts talking about the server populations, where we've got, you know, Twitter feeds full of, you know, screenshots, 8,600 in queue, 3,000 in queue, you know, waiting to get in for multiple hours, those kind of things. You know, seeing some of that come back. people come back and the players being reintroduced to World of Warcraft because they're coming to play Wrath of the Lich King, I think is a big part of those reasons. And Alodar, you did mention that you believe it's gonna be busier than it was for TBC, and I think that may be accurate. And even to go so far as there's probably gonna be more people playing Wrath of the Lich King than there will be for Dragonflight, maybe. Just seeing it that this is something that was their peak of their population in the game history. This is when they had the most players playing, was Wrath of the Lich King. So
that point that you just brought up is another major argument that we've had. Is I've said that Wrath of the Lich King will be way busier than, or it will definitely be busier than Dragonflight. You'll have more people playing Wrath of the Lich King than Dragonflight.
No,
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, to be honest.
Now, I don't think Flame was on a server that's got this issue, but Alodar and Raz, maybe you guys could speak to some more too. Looking at it, did either of you guys find yourself sitting in the queues for that? And do you feel that was it noticeable when you're in the game? Like, how did the game and the population within the gameplay feel?
Well, I think I got a Faralina at the best time. About 2 months ago, transferred off at Faralina, so luckily I didn't have to deal with the queues because I'm on Mancrick, obviously, with you guys. So.
Okay.
I don't deal with queues. I've got Chrome Remote Desktop, so I don't know what a queue.
Yeah.
I don't know what a queue
Yeah,
is.
he's always lucky.
Well, see,
He's always lucky.
that's a funny thing you say that, right? Because if people, that's what I even commented this on Streamline the other day. I said, look, what's going to happen is you're going to have people that are going to be remote desktop in, they're never going to log their character out. They're going to sit in a position where they're like, dude, I don't want to sit there for 5 hours. No one wants to do that. That's awful. You get off work, you come home, you sit down, you're like, man, I want to log in and play my guy. You can sit in queue for 5 hours, dude. That would be enough to make me not want to play it at all.
Well, if you're somebody that's got a regular 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and you're coming home from work at 6 o'clock, by the time you get home, even if you pop yourself into queue immediately and then do all the dinner stuff and all that sort of stuff, it's still going to be 10, 11 o'clock at night before you get on. So, I mean, forget that. I mean, Chrome Remote Desktop, I know there's I've seen people that have made videos and talking about how, these people, they use Chrome Remote Desktop to get in and stuff like that. Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm playing once I get in. Just because I give myself something else to do while I'm sitting in queue, I don't see what the problem is. But it's the people that use macros and programs to keep themselves logged in while they're asleep or something like that.
That's a good point.
That I have a bit of a problem with, but I'm going to sound like a hypocrite. I have actually set my alarm to wake myself up so I could put myself in the queue and go back to bed. So anyways.
No, that's a good point, though, right? It's not so much someone sitting in queue with a remote desktop setup of some sort. It's more the guy that's using macros and auto running into the wall and that kind of thing to keep himself from getting logged out. That helps perpetuate some of the problem. Like, I've had people tell me, they said, yeah, they admitted that was something they're doing, park their guy in a building somewhere because they don't want to have to deal with the massive queue. And then now we've come up with this is something that's come up because Wrath Pre Patch has become available, and part of that is the cycle of players. They come in, they play, they're all excited, and then they kind of dwindle and they unsub and they don't play, and then all of a sudden more content or something that appeals to them more, and then they resub, and it bolsters the community again. And then you have not only that, but these mega servers where the population is so stinking high because of any number of reasons, whether it was the server to go to, or whether it's because there's a specific content creator on a given server and people want to play on the same server as that creator. And now you have this compounding factor of people coming back and they want to play where all their friends are playing on those servers, and that's bolstered the population so high that it's created the problem. So Blizzard's solution was they're currently offering free transfers off those realms, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
That's their solution now, after they scammed the people by allowing them to pay the money to transfer there. And instead of giving them a refund to go somewhere else, they're saying, oh, we're just going to give you a free transfer. Like, well, I paid to go to Faralina. If you're not going to let me go to Faralina, give me my money back. Or if you're going to ask me to leave, give me my money back. Basically, quite the, I don't know.
No, I totally get what you're saying, because it's like I have a gripe with like the population problem originating the way it did in the first place, right? They
allowed
a million billion people to transfer to these places, and or
took their money.
Took their money, and or continue to create characters there for whatever reason, and now all of a sudden, well, it doesn't work that way, and we didn't stop you proactively. And I think it's just a poor customer service standpoint from Blizzard, and like they knew what was coming, and they saw what was coming, and they did nothing about it. They kind of, created the problem, but at the same time, do you think like the community created the problem as well? Does everyone need to play on Asmongold server? No, but
I mean,
a billion people want to. Whose fault is it more? Is it more like Blizzard's fault, or is it more the community's fault for the way that they're,
I don't necessarily think that it's even people that want to go to where Asmongold or large content creators are. Like, to be honest, like a lot of them they're spread out over different servers. Stay Safe's on Peggle, and I know he plays on one of the new Fresh servers, but I think a lot of people just want to go to the servers that are really busy and they're not worried about dying. Like, that's one of the reasons why people aren't leaving Sky Fury to go to this new PvP server, because it's not as busy. You can log in, people will scout it out first, and they'll see that there's 3 people in Orgrimmar, and when you're on Sky Fury, there's people all over the place. Like, if I'd be worried that this server would die, and then you'd end up paying for a transfer to go somewhere else. So I think people just want to be on a server that is busy. Do they want to be on a server where there's a 5-hour-long queue? Maybe not. But I also think there's a lot of people that they've already invested their time on that server. For example, my guild, we cannot leave Fairlina because I have a ton of people in both of our raids that have a massive number of alts that supply not only their character that they raid with us with, but if they raid in other raids or GDKPs or something like that, they also help those characters with making items or making gold and stuff like that. So I can't just say we're all transferring off, because suddenly they don't have those alts to transfer with as well. And then what do? You transfer all of your people to another realm. They don't have these alts to make them gold. But even now, if you
is
look
there a
on
limit on the transfer? I didn't realize that. Like
It's
like a level
one
requirement or
character per
something?
server, right?
No, you can transfer all of your alts and stuff too. But what I'm saying is, if they've got other characters that they're raiding with in other guilds or GDKPs or whatever, and they use those alts to make them gold, they can't. They're stuck.
I
They can't
understand.
transfer their alts. But we're asking them to transfer to another server that's already infested with bots, and there's gold selling and stuff like that. So the prices of stuff are already going to skyrocket. If you look at, like, you can go on these gold selling sites. Not that I'd advise you guys to do that, of course. I don't like, the idea of buying and selling gold or whatever, but obviously people are doing it. But you can go onto these sites, and the price of gold on, Sky Fury is almost down to what the price of it is on every other server now. So it's already infested. So I'd be asking my raiders to transfer over, and they'd have no support system, no alts to make them gold, and then I'd be basically telling them you have to buy gold or farm for hours and hours and hours every week. So
Yeah, that's the gold farming already, or gold sellers already being on those servers is insane to me, right? To think that they've got brand new fresh servers coming out, and instantaneously they've already got that problem. And I think a lot of that, without diving super deep into it, is a massive failure on Blizzard's part, as far as again, customer service being non-existent and server and player management being non-existent, right? They just never took a hard line on people buying gold. They never did anything about it. It's like, I think the only reason they ever do anything about, quote unquote, do anything about it, is it's more of a publicity stunt to say, look, we're doing something, and they're just mad that someone's making money off of selling things that they're not. And that's really all it boils down to. But I just, God. It's gross to me all the way around. The fresh servers, I mean, you've got characters that you've made there, Alodar. I don't know about the other gentlemen, if you guys have done anything on there, but I've done a little community survey too, and I found that a lot of people, when I asked them, well, why is everybody so excited about fresh? And we're on economics here, and the biggest thing is that people that I spoke to were happy about the economy not being ridiculously overinflated, and that was one of the main draws that they had to the fresh server. I don't know if you guys have any other experiences in that, or thoughts or comments on it, but that's kind of what I found people appealed most with the fresh thing was.
Well, I can see what the appeal is for a fresh server. Obviously, the economy not being screwed. But the problem I've got is, how long will it take before it is inflated? Because it won't take long, especially with bots and stuff. I've not even thought about making a character over on a fresh server. It's just something that just doesn't interest me personally. But I can see why people would like to go over there onto a fresh.
Yeah, I'm the same. I really don't have any interest in starting over again. I mean, if it was regular vanilla, classic, I would have no problem with it if everybody started at the same thing. But going from a server where I'm already established and I already had to transfer to and, get my tunes and get the money starting to roll in and then have to redo it again on another server just for the sake of leveling fresh, I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of fresh. The whole starting off fresh and the rush to level up and PvPing and Stragathorn Vale and all that stuff. I've always enjoyed that.
Yeah,
but
oh, go ahead.
We weren't going to transfer there as a guild. We very briefly talked about it, but again, we had too many people that had their support system already set up for raiding and all that sort of stuff. A bunch of us have created characters on Sky Fury. I know some of them were really turned off by the queues for a bit, but we can talk about this later as well. But the queues, there was no queues on any server on NA yesterday at all, at any time. So Benediction, Grobulus, Fairlina, Sky Fury, none of them had any queues yesterday. So maybe they might be more interested in that, but a bunch of us created characters just to basically do world PvP, but we're not going to have anything to do with raiding on that server. So, yeah, but the initial rush is, I feel, is just a lot of fun. I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's actually a great.
If you're PvPing, if you're PvPing, it's probably a really good, fresh environment and lots of shenanigans that can go on. But I wouldn't want to do it to raid there. That would be just like a waste of time.
It's a great comment, though. Speaking about the fact that I can't speak firsthand, but obviously you've looked into it a little bit about the queues and stuff. With the fact that there haven't been any queues of remark in the past, few days here, like you said, that shows that the transfers are either working and or being effective.
I'm just gonna send it, boys.
In the long run for the server pops.
I've got a little point about that one.
I'm just gonna send it, boys.
I had in one of my Alliance tunes, I moved to Benediction.
Hang tight 1 second. I'm having an audio cycling issue.
Oh yeah!
Sorry about that. I don't know what it is. One of my alerts for some reason just keeps playing nonstop in the background on certain scenes in my OBS. So forgive me, guys. I'll try to edit this out if I don't on the podcast when you're listening. I apologize.
Is it on stream or?
It's okay.
Yeah, it's my alert for follows on stream went off and it's just cycling.
It's echoing forever.
Just turn those alerts off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even on this display though. That's the thing. I don't know how it's. Either way, let's.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay.
Sorry, Flame.
No, it's okay. I lost my train of thought. Now it's gone.
Yeah, either way, I'm just saying it seems that the solution is helping, right? That they're allowing people to transfer off and it is making an impact on those queues, which I guess is a good thing, even though I think the queues existed in the first place because of mismanagement, what was going on. But, the other thing, too, is maybe I'm a culprit to this problem, too, but we look at, I say problem, whether it's a problem or not remains to be seen until we actually get into the meat potatoes of Wrath when it gets here. But the insane amount of Death Knights I see everywhere, like going into the Battlegrounds and I'm seeing, 10, 15, 20 people playing a Death Knight in a single BG. Like, it blows my mind, and I'm just like, how? I hope to God all these people are not making them their mains. But it's just like, it's ridiculous what I, as far as what I see in the out and about in the world. I mean, do you guys think that that's something that's going to maintain or keep happening? Or is that just the hype of the new class and everybody wants to get their hands on it for a short bit?
I think it's a bit of both. We had one AV where there was 24 Death Knights on just our team. So I think just because of how strong they are, I think there will be some staying power. There's a lot of raids that are taking several Death Knights. We've got 5 in our raid.
Wow.
Like 5 in 5 Death Knights in one raid. They're just too good not to have. They just press W the entire time and just keep going. So, but I think they're here to stay. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of like in several months' time, I don't think you're going to get to the point where you have 24 in one raid, but they are going to be popular for the entire expansion for sure.
Yeah, I think they have a place and a time, and like you guys say, there's tons of them. Even in Battlegrounds today, there was 15 plus in ours. A lot of people like them. A lot of people want to play them, including Doc. But I think what's going to happen is eventually, once they get all the gear and they get to 80, it's going to go like people will start to fall back into their alts. Like they'll play them for farming and stuff like that. They're going to be amazing, but I don't think they're going to be like like you say, 5 Death Knights through the whole expansion in one raid, unless you've got like a really sweaty guild that really requires it.
Yeah, the amount of Death Knights at the moment is crazy. Like in the battlegrounds and stuff. Like I did a BG earlier, running up north, and there's like 10 Alliance Death Knights all running towards me in the opposite direction. It's just scary. Like they're gonna be used more often, I think, than they were back then. But like Flame said, I think they drop off a bit number wise, and people will go back to their alts.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them that I've seen out and about and around, and Chad making a couple comments about the power level that the Death Knights have, and I am not like I've spent a lot of my time PvPing with them, but I'm not the greatest PvPer in the world by any means. If you've seen me PvP, you know that. But I would also like to think I'm not completely terrible, and I feel very, very powerful in PvP. But then again, I'm also wearing all the Glad gear now and fighting people that are fresh boosted dudes that have, I'm standing next to 2 boosted guys and I have, over double the health of the 2 characters together. I'm like sitting at like 16,000 and they've each got about 5,000 or 6,000, and I'm like, this is insane. Like 2 guys that I literally have more health than both of them together. But it feels very strong, in my opinion. Even speaking to that, while I was leveling, was working with another guy from our community here, doing Blood Furnace runs, and it was crazy. Like just 2 guys going through Blood Furnace, like full clearing the whole thing. Not right away, but we definitely did, and it was just very, very impressive. And I'm like, man, are these Death Knights, are they that strong? Is it just so powerful, or is it the fact that we've got these talents and other stuff? Because there's a lot of new abilities for a lot of classes, and you see a lot of people doing things that they previously couldn't with the current skill sets that are offered.
Yeah,
I was reading a blue post today, and I did a lot of research before the show, and they were talking about equalization. So they were saying when Wrath launches, they're going to equalize the power creep on a lot of different classes. So you might see Death Knights not be as strong as they are in pre-patch. They might settle it down a bit, but we won't know until it actually goes live.
I was gonna say regarding the leveling of Death Knights, I think once people saw how easy it was to go through Blood Furnace, I mean, even I jumped on the bandwagon. I hadn't really planned on making a Death Knight, and then we had 2 people in our guild that were level 70, and like day 1 of Death Knights being launched, they were both like, even myself. So the next day or 2 days later, myself and one of our other raiders, we both started Death Knights, and I mean, even myself, we went as soon as we finished the Death Knight zone. We immediately headed to Blood Furnace. I think we did 2 quests in Hellfire Peninsula, headed straight to Blood Furnace. We were duoing it until level 62. I hate the DK, and we at level 62, we both went off and soloed Blood Furnace all the way to 70 after that. So.
Yeah, I don't think I took it the whole way to 70, but I was just astonished. And by the time, like, I was thinking, we were doing so well, we actually grabbed another body or 2, and we just went up to Sethic Halls and started just, like, slaughtering in there. And I couldn't believe how easy it was to AoE and so, chat. Once the AoE and just level through, you get so much healing. But, man.
Yeah, the self-healing is ridiculous on Death Knights. I mean, I remember we were in a battleground, Doc, and I think you were like 2nd or 3rd overall in healing, and it was nuts.
Oh, that's probably entirely possible, depending on how that particular ground went. So when we actually have the Wrath content drop? Like, what are you guys planning to do? Like, what's your lowdown? Do you have a roadmap made up for how you're gonna level or what you're gonna do when it gets here? Or are you just gonna wing it? Have you loaded your quest log? Like, what kind of stuff have you guys completed in your tunes to actually kick off the Wrath content, or anything if you've done anything at all as far as that goes?
I think I'm going to stick to what I did originally. I'm just going to get into the zone, quest, have fun, and then dungeon as a group. Like, once I can get to the point where we can get into the first dungeon, then go from there and just keep grinding and try to get to max level as fast as possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to do the same. I think do some questing, do some dungeons when we can. In general, just get to 80, but maybe not rush it. Like, just enjoy it, like the first time. But yeah, generally enjoy, do dungeons, do quests, enjoy that rafts. Yeah, pretty much.
I've got to actually learn the mage solo of is it Utgard Keep? So I'm swapping to mage as my main, so I've still got to learn it. I've heard it's not particularly hard, so I should be able to get it pretty good. If beta's still up, actually, maybe that's something I'll do over the next couple of days. But otherwise, we'll be doing a lot of dungeon grinding as a guild. Maybe a little bit of questing, but I think primarily we'll be doing a lot of dungeon grinding.
The my personal plan is I would like to do kind of similar to what I did for Burning Crusade, is to find a group that wants to try as best we can to consistently group together, but primary focus on doing dungeon runs. Again, because I'm not a super big Wrath Andy, and I haven't looked into the statement I'm about to make here, so take it with a grain of salt. I assume it's going to be like TBC was with your reputations. You get so much rep from killing the mobs in the lower tier dungeons. You know, you're gonna get to that threshold and you're gonna be stuck, and then you're not gonna be able to get additional rep until you get to the level 80 dungeon that's in that given reputation field. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead, do the dungeon while leveling, hit that benchmark, and then move on to the next dungeon that's going to give a different rep, and be able to work on the reputation in that given area. So then once I hit level cap, I can go back and do all the quests if I still need to. Do all the quests, A, to make gold, B, to round off your reputation, and get access to heroics through the keying process. That works. God, I should have looked this
Works
up,
a
but
little different.
I believed it worked the same.
Works a
is
little
what I
different.
thought.
Well,
Yeah,
you can get tabards for each faction in Wrath, and basically, as long as you're wearing that tabard, whatever dungeon you go into, you get rep.
That's
So
right,
basically,
I forgot about that.
you can wear the tabard all the way through. So, for example, if you grind the Sun Reavers and you're wearing the tabard, and you go to whatever dungeon you're in, you get rep with the Sun Reavers. Then when you get exalted, you switch tabards, and you keep doing it until all your reps are exalted.
I completely forgot about that. That's a fantastic thing to bring up. That's and chat saying so too. You get the tabard wear in the 80 dungeons and just get massive amounts of rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Very nice.
That's actually a good thing, believe it or not. I like that.
It's a solution to getting people to run other dungeons. Like, you know, see people sitting there going, "Oh, I only want to run, Alcatraz because I need the rep, or I only want to run, this and that because I need the rep," and they won't run anything else. And I can say, "Well, put on your stupid tabard and come join me at,
Utgard Pinnacle."
yeah, wherever you happen to be or need to go to get the reputation, you can still get rep gains by that. I don't necessarily see that as an overwhelming problem. It's just going to continue to keep players playing the content, even if they don't necessarily, quote unquote, need something from that piece of the content, but they can still get something out of it while helping their friends or helping their guildmates and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and don't forget dungeon heroic dailies and stuff like that. You're going to have different dungeons available to do different quests in, so that's going to force people to go back and do them as well.
Gotcha. And yeah, and again, another good comment from chat here too is that the certain reputations obviously are not going to all be available from the dungeon runs or killing mobs. You're going to have to do either dailies or certain other quests or other tasks to get those reputations up. Now, you guys got anything else planned on your first week, your launch week, or it's just get the dungeons, get the 80, and some of you take it slow and easy, enjoy the process, and everybody else is rushing?
We're rushing for sure. Like we need to be up and ready for week 1 full clearing, and so we'll be going as fast as we can to get up and ready right away. We've got gonna have ourselves organized so that people have groups. We know when people are able to log in and try and get people. Obviously, you're probably maybe in most cases not going to have the same group every day, but we want to make sure everybody's got the opportunity to find a guild group to get up as fast as possible and get all their, all the best gear that they can possibly get before going for that week one full clear. So.
Yeah, and like Celtic said in chat, getting decks for greatness cards as soon as possible.
Yeah.
There you go. That's gonna take a minute. Those things are gonna be very, very valuable for quite a while. I think everybody's gonna be trying to get those when they either can craft them for themselves or make a friend. If you don't have one now, make a friend to get them done, or you're gonna be paying a pretty penny. Even a day.
Yeah, funnel match to your guildie that makes all the stuff, and get your entire raid team the greatness cards ASAP.
Yeah. So, kind of moving forward to the next bit of content that we want to talk about is, I had mentioned the heroics and stuff, and they're gonna be altering the badge system for all of Wrath, I believe, because they had a very sprawling system, if you will, back in the day with multiple badges for all these different
Convoluted.
tiers. Convoluted, all these different tiers and stuff. So, and I couldn't find 100% on the all of the information on this. And I'm losing into my notes right now, but they're going to be having a heroic tier badge, which will come from heroics and also the 10-man versions of the first tier of content. And in looking into that some, they're actually going to make certain tier pieces and token pieces purchasable with the emblems that they're going to have, and that's going to make I think it's 2 pieces. One for each, two pieces of the tier gear are going to be purchased
10 man,
10 man,
and then 25 man.
Yes, okay, because we were talking about that before the show, Flame. Now that's something I think people are going to be able to very, very quickly, right? So if you can do heroics and you can get into those, right out of the gate, that's going to allow people to gear up very, very quickly, gain access to those tier 7 pieces without even necessarily having to do the raid content the first week to be getting some of that stuff.
I think the best part about that is you're going to have 2 10-man pieces and 2 different 25-man pieces available right away. So that's 4. Even though they're not matching sets, it's still 4 pieces of gear.
Were you able to find out? Is that going to be accessible with just the badge? Because I thought there was going to be a separate system for the 10 and 25 mans.
Well, on that blue post, it basically said that you're going to have 2 pieces available for the 10-man version of badges and 2 pieces available for the 25-man, but they didn't specify if you had to get them in raids or whatever. They didn't say that in the post, so I'm assuming so.
Okay, because wasn't 100% sure on the badge system either, if they were going to have something that was going to be simply the heroic / 10-man version badges and then a 25-man version badges, or whether it was going to coincide. So that may be something that is out there. The information may be available. We don't have that. I'm not 100% certain on that. Something like that.
So Celtic was saying they were always purchasable, but they changed the way badges work. Like you say, there used to be like 6 different badges that you had to upgrade one badge to another to get a piece of heroic gear. That's all gone now. So it's just basically 2 different types of badges.
Yeah, that, and there's also been a lot of discussion, and again, I didn't have a hard note on this one either, but that they're going to be altering the whole badge system, so it's going to be different. And they said they're developing a way to offer a value for players to continue doing heroics, even though they don't necessarily need whatever specific badge tier is available there. And I don't know what that system is going to be yet, and I don't know if you've got any information on that one either.
No, and like Celtic again is saying in the chat, so you can get your 25-man 2-piece from doing 10-man raids. So I'm assuming if you're doing 10-man heroic, you get a chance to get the 2-piece 25-man from the badge vendor.
Okay.
I mean, I would prefer to get a raid from Blizzard, because in the end they're the only ones that really know what they're going to do.
Okay, so he's saying that the availability is going to be you can buy the 25-man 2-piece with the 10-man. Okay.
Well, according to the post I had today, they renamed the badges completely different badges than what they had originally.
The emblems are that was because I wasn't super familiar with the system to begin with, but basically looking at it, it's going to be altered in a way that allows you to gain them from okay, Razzeron, if you want to weigh in, go ahead.
Yeah, what Celtic said. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head because it was well. So they're using a set of emblems for current raid content, and then when the next raid content comes out, the old ones will be lower, and the newer raid content will be like, I don't know, Valor, for example. So the newest raid content will be Valor, and it will just upgrade that way. And then the older one will be another badge. Another emblem. That's what I heard. But I have
So
to
is it-
reread it.
Okay.
Is the new raid content is always going to be Valor, or that's just the
Then
second?
so they have a set. I think they're gonna have a set thing where all the newest current content will always be a
Always be
certain emblem,
Okay, all right.
and then once it's the old content, it will go to a different one, and the newer
So
one will always be the same one.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think that's why they changed it, because if I remember correctly, like every new phase that came out, there was a new badge that came out with it or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm.
So
Yeah, and then by the time Ice Crown 25 Man Hero came out, there was like 6 different types of badges you could get, and you had to trade in to get the heroic gear. You had to trade in a regular piece of gear plus a new badge to get the gear, and they wanted to, I guess, alleviate that system and just go with 2 badges, 2 separate.
Yeah, doing the 2 badge system. Obviously, we need to see what it's going to work out like, but it's going to be a lot better than having 6 different badges or
Yeah.
emblems for the different raids. It's better just to have 2 to make it simpler.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anyway, it should be a better system and not as convoluted as I think that's the point.
Okay, one second. I'm briefly looking at a link here. So I'm just gonna read it. Okay, so it's a blue post. It says, finally, the itemization and raid lock systems for Wrath of the Lich King evolved several times during the expansion. Rather than changing per phase, we want to make it more consistent, which is what we were discussing. This means that the emblems should drop and work in the same way every tier. Set pieces should be acquired the same way every tier, and ideally raid lockouts should function the same way every tier. To support this, both 10 player raids and 25 player raids will drop emblems of valor at launch, while dungeons will drop emblems of heroism, matching the design pattern for the emblems that was used in Trial of the Crusader and Icecrown Citadel. Okay. So then they'll just scale this system up as it progresses through the different content patches.
Makes sense.
Is what would make that simpler, I think. Okay. So then we were basically on point with that as far as what the way they're going to manage it. Excellent. But so going into the first raid tier, tier 7, Nax has no attunement, which is one of the big raids. Everybody knows Nax's Wrath, right? And then in addition to that, we've also got
Obsidian Sanctum.
Obsidian Sanctum and Vault of Archivon.
Yep.
Sorry, I was looking for my notes. I have them split up.
Yep.
But we've got 3 raids that are going to be available, and the Winter's Grasp raid, also when that becomes available, is going to have the tier 7 content. And depending on that whole system we'll get into in a few moments. But going through and looking, Eye of Eternity, yes. The going through and looking at Nax, right? I did a big overhaul look at this to see what kind of stuff you would expect to see. A lot of people have now done or found a way to get through the classic Nax content, which I still think is one of the greatest raids out there. But they've made an overall change to the Wrath version where they're increasing the overall damage output of the NPCs by about 30% and increasing the health of the NPCs by about 30% to up the difficulty. And that comes from people's historical experience. It was exceptionally underwhelming when they originally went into Wrath in Nax, because very few players in the original vanilla or the classic version of the game got to go through Nax Remus, so they didn't get to see it. So they reused the content and they adapted it to fit for their 10 and 25 man versions of the raid content. Now, when I went through and kind of looked over this, maybe not everything or all of it, but feel free to speak up, gentlemen, if you find something different. But like the Spiderwing had what I would argue is almost no change. There's just a little bit of scaling on the number of mobs available. You know, when you're doing an Ubercon, you're only going to have 1 ad instead of 2 ads if you're in the 10 man versus 25 man. Grand Widow Farlena is going to have her worshippers and followers in the 25-man, but the 10-man will be lacking the followers. You just have the worshippers. Nothing really big there. In the Plague Quarter, Hygen, aka the dance boss. Everybody knows the dance boss. You find out who has the moves and who doesn't when you get there. His gauntlet event is actually gone, so you no longer will have 3 random players or less transported down the hallway running through eyeballs and slugs. You're just gonna have, old man Alodar in his wheelchair rolling across the floor. Sorry.
Just a shuffling.
You see, he's doing the shuffle. He's doing the Hygen shuffle. And then the one other change I see in that wing, right, when you look at Lotheb, the swamp beast, basically the fundamental mechanic of that fight is the inability to heal, right? You're not able to heal because you heal, you get a debuff. That's kind of changed to just he's going to be casting a spell that will only allow you to heal essentially 3 seconds or 2 globals out of every 20 seconds. It'll be a 17-second window where you get necrotic aura and you can't cast healing. Not a real big change, but it's simplified the fight a little bit, and I think some of that has to just do with the compositions and available number of any given class or class combinations that'll be in, a 10 or 25-man group could be different than that if the 40 players. So you're going to see, a little bit of change there. The construct wing, there's not really a whole lot that's going to be fundamentally different that I came across as far as like the way the game will play versus what the classic version was. The military wing, you'll see Instructor Resuvius. Everybody knows him as the guy you got to mind control the ads to tank him. The tanks don't actually tank him. They did add 2 control orbs for the 10-man version, so that you can use those if you don't have priests to do mind controls, and allows you to functionally do the fight as though someone was a priest, even if they're not. And then simply Gothic has just some of the numbers of mobs adjusted for the amount of players. And then you'll see the 4 Horsemen, right? Everybody knows that fight is an infamously difficult fight from Classic Nax, if you were not familiar, and it is a bit of a challenge because it requires a lot of coordination. Well, some of that's going to be altered for this version. You're going to see the Horsemen will automatically go to the 4 corners of the rooms, and you're not going to need the 8 tanks that you had before. You're going to be able to rotate 2 damage-absorbing players for 2 of them, and the other 2 you have to use your traditional tanks and then do a little bit of rotating around, but it's much more simple in that regard. Saffron.
One more thing, Doc.
Yeah, go
One
ahead.
more thing about Resuvius. On the 25-man version, you have to have priest mind control. There's no orbs.
Yep, that is still the same, so good point to point that one out. Saffron is just going to reduce the number of ice blocks that you have to run behind the 10-man. You'll have 2 versus 3 in the 25-man, and 3 it was 3 and 40, wasn't it? Or was it 4? Either way, you only have that many now, and KT simply just a few things scaled for as far as the Crypt Guard Lords go, and you're going to get less of them in the 10-man kind of thing. But most of Nax, I think, was the same. I don't know if any of y'all picked up on anything that was going to be a difference or something, any kind of comments or thoughts on the Nax changes as far as increasing the damage output and the health pools of the given mobs and bosses.
Did they mention anything about patchwork?
What specifically?
Like, is he still going to do hatefuls on the second highest threat and stuff like that?
Well, it's based off the health, right? The health of the people in proximity, so you are still going to have the hateful strike mechanic to contend with during that encounter.
It's still going to be relatively easy, though. So
Yeah. DPS burn phase, basically.
Yeah, I know when we talked a little earlier, Alodar, you had mentioned that some of the people that had been doing the testing found that even with the increases, didn't think it was that difficult.
yeah, no, it's I mean, it's definitely easier than Nax and vanilla. So I think people are they're just basically face rolling it, especially with people already know the fights and stuff like that. It's meant to be an easy kind of first step raid. So even with the increased health and damage that they do, we're still finding on the beta that it was super easy.
Yeah.
So as long as you know the mechanics, like it's really not going to be that hard for I mean, even the most casual of guilds to really kind of get through, you might, maybe you might not get it first night if you're super casual or something like that, which is fine. But I think it's overall meant to just be an intro raid, or that's what it turned out to be, because they nerfed it so much in original Wrath that it just became super easy. And even with the buffs and stuff like that, I think you're still going to see people just face roll right through the whole raid. So
I was hoping they were going to bring the pre-nerf version of that back, and not the 30% more health and damage is fine, but I think they should bring back the pre-nerf version of that raid, because it was a lot harder.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at it from Blizzard's point of view, though, like, they can't make it too hard, because they don't want to have a guild killer raid the very first phase of the game,
Yeah,
right?
true.
Like, they don't want to have people burn out and get, not that it's going to be a guild killer or anything like that but they don't want it to be like that. They don't want, they don't want the that guild killer boss to be in the first raid of the expansion type of thing. So
Yeah, they wanted to be Yogg-Saron on hard mode 4 lights.
yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point to make. With it having been so, I don't remember how it felt back in the day. I did do Wrath, and I didn't do a lot of Wrath, but I did do Nax as one of the things that I went through, and I don't remember thinking at any point in time it was overly difficult, but at the same time I don't necessarily remember thinking it was exceptionally easy back then. But I do remember a lot of conversation like, oh man, this is way easier than what Nax was in Classic, which is very true. I hope that the change will make it something a little bit meatier to bite into, but at the same time, I certainly hope that, as you said, Alodar, because I'm going to be having a more casual approach to Wrath as I play, as far as like the raid content that I'll be pushing and that kind of stuff, and just kind of dad gaming my way through it, if you will, just to see the things and try to do some of the, maybe the achievements, or maybe some of the hard mode stuff, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to make it a point of pushing kind of thing. And some of the people I'm going to be playing with, I think, have that same kind of, it'll be fun to try things, but we're just going to casually go through the stuff. And I hope that it's enough that it makes it a challenge, but not so much that some of the players that are maybe not as practiced at raiding and raid mechanics and stuff have trouble with it. I don't think that'll be the case, based off of previous discussion, and the content itself really isn't that difficult. Most of it's very, very simple, and a lot of people are very familiar with it as well. But yeah. Now, in addition to Nax Remnants, there's also going to be the Obsidian Sanctum, the Eye of Eternity, and like I said, the Winter's Grasp content. Now, the Obsidian Sanctum, just briefly to mention, there's going to be no attunement to this, and it is a single primary boss. You have a dragon in there, 3 mini boss type encounters as well, and this each of them 10 and 25 man respectively will drop the Black Drake mount and a Twilight Drake mount and a 22 slot bag. So everybody loves mounts. People are going to want to run that forever. It's that and the bag. Bags are always a great way to keep people back to, you're looking at a first tier content for an expansion content. So making a reason for people to continually run that is some value. Bags. Everybody always needs more bag space, and the mounts themselves. So I think that's great. And then when you look at Eye of Eternity, another one is a single boss, Malagos. And he can drop, respectively, in the 10 and 25 mans. He's got the Reigns of the Azure Drake or Reigns of the Blue Drake that drop. And this one does have an attunement, but it's the name slightly different for each. But the key of focusing Iris, for either faction is essentially the tagline on that. But it comes from killing Saffron. There's a drop on there that begins the quest for this attunement. Now, we also had some brief discussion too about the composition with the difficulty on Nax. Alodar, I remember you had a few comments or thoughts on the fact, like, how are people going to organize their raids, right? There's going to be, how many tanks you think people are going to want? Because like I had mentioned before, you're not necessarily going to need 8 tanks for the Horsemen, because that's completely different, and the raid sizes don't allow for it. So You know, no one's going to be bringing 8 tanks on a 25-man raid. You know, people are going to want what, you know, after looking at it, you're going to need probably the 4 healers, and there's some other variants that that people may bring, or some points that we had discussed.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we
obviously
missed out
there's
Anixia too.
the Anixia raid. Yeah,
Yeah, because she's upgraded to level 82.
yeah. So you can. I actually totally forgot
Dude, I
about
didn't even-
Anixia.
I'm going to be
To
honest.
be honest.
I didn't even
But
cross my mind.
I knew that was going to be in Wrath, but I've not even thought about Anixia. So yeah, there will be that addition as well, but we can stay on track and just keep going with the I guess the composition you were asking about.
Well, just you know, general conversation on raid compositions for any
Yeah,
of the content. But.
Well, obviously, I mean, people probably watch all the videos that, you know, a lot of the bigger content creators, Sarth and Crix, and they've got they've been kind of hashing about all the classes and, you know, what are going to be the best classes for raiding and stuff like that. If you look at the buffs, like raid buffs that you want to have in your raid, you can get that through between 12 and 14 players in your raid. And so if you find those 12 or 14 players to cover all of the buffs, you can basically have, you know, whatever you want for the other class. You can have, you know, the 14 players to get all the buffs, and then have the other 11 players being affliction locks if you want. But there's going to be some classes that are favorites. For example, like everybody's going to want a Blood DK. Everyone's going to want a prop Paladin. You're going to want your holy, you know, a lot of raids are going with 2 holy Paladins. You're going to have, then a lot of the other stuff is kind of, you know, personal preference. Do you want 1 Shaman or do you want 2? I mean, a lot of people are really hyped about the enhancement. Or I guess the name people are calling it is the Spell Enhance, which is basically just an enhancement shaman with spell power gear. It's still an enhancement shaman. I believe the actual spec is basically the same. We ourselves we're actually only going to have only have 1 shaman, or at least that's the plan. We're just going to have 1 resto. I've gotten into this debate with other people. Some people feel that if you're going to have 1 shaman, it should be an enhancement, but the buffs that you get from an enhancement shaman are basically the same. You know, you get the same buffs from your Frost DK. It's the exact same. I know the Spell Enhance does more damage, but besides those buffs, you're still gonna want a Frost DK in your raid anyways. So you can get the buffs from them, and if you're only allowed to have, you know, able to use 1 Bloodlust, you only need 1 Shaman for that. And so we ourselves are just going with 1 Shaman. We feel that if we're going to have 1, we want it to be a resto for the Mana Tide. I know Spellhance does a lot of damage, but I feel that a Mana Tide resto shaman in your group with maybe 2 warlocks and 2 mages is going to offset and make up for the difference in damage. So, you know, and like I said,
You know,
it's all just kind of.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to comment just on that real quick, too. It's like, when you're looking at the capability of players as they are now versus at the skill level of players as they are now, I mean, let's be honest, enraged timers aren't really a problem. You know, it's about how much can people pump out. So having that, like, you know, if you get the casters and you're dropping the Resto Shaman with the Mana Tide, or bringing the Resto Shaman so they can drop Mana Tide, you're now looking at those casters are just almost getting complete full bars, going to be able to pump hard. So,
well, that's that's what I was saying. Like, people have pointed out that, you get all the buffs from an enhancement shaman that you get from from an enhancement shaman that you get from a Resto. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't get the Mana Tide, and I honestly feel that that's going to be a big boost to 4 of your casters. And I've even heard people talk about making having a Resto Shaman that's kind of like a spec'd up to Mana Tide, but still DPSing, because you can use that as a DPS and still have 4 other healers.
the other thing, too, is going to be a huge benefit to your healers' mana pools as well, having that Mana Tide. That's big if people are missing that, I think.
Yeah, if you're gonna put them in with your healers, you've got the option to swap them in with your healer group if it's going to be for a longer fight. But I think a lot of people are planning on, they're looking at that mana tide is something to throw in with your mages and maybe your warlocks or something like that
Now,
to
is that
boost
still?
your DPS.
You can still hot swap those guys during the middle of the raid, even necessarily. If they're putting down certain totem types you want for specific groups. Is that something that people still utilize? Because I remember doing a lot of that. Back in the day, people hot swapping shamans for like dropping in, like on patchwork, they might throw them in the healer group, drop their tide, and then switch them out once their tide was gone, so they could, stuff like that. Are people still running those types of strategies?
Yeah, I think, well, for something like mana tide, because that is only group specific, whereas other things are not. They're going to be raid wide. So that's why you only need one shaman instead of 6.
Yeah, Celtic also mentioned the spell haste totem too. Resto gets spell haste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another. I mean, it just really helps with your casters. So I think if you're going to have one shaman, it should be Resto. If you're going to have 2, then great. Bring a enhanced shaman if you want instead of a frost DK. I'm going to be honest. I don't really know a lot about enhanced shamans. I've never really played one. I've never played one to max level. But from what I understand, I believe that if they have to, it's not optimal for them to have to put points into their into their particular talents to make their buffs be as good as frost DKs. Frost DKs just automatically get it.
Well,
again.
Another thing too, and you mentioned the DKs because I've looked into this because I'm going to be playing the DK, is the builds I'm looking at, and anybody that's out there, feel free to either drop a comment below the video if you're listening on YouTube or other places, or get at me on my stream sometime. But that the final talent points for the talent trees for DKs are basically trash can. So well, not totally trash can, but they're not necessarily worth if you're going to be speccing the blood, where blood is supposed to be functional for doing your tanking and stuff, but you end up going down the frost tree enough to get improved icy touch or talons,
talons.
Talons, where you're going to have that haste all the time for everybody, and you're still going to have all of your valuable blood talents, so you can get that from quote unquote a blood DK, if you will, if it's going to be in that speccing that way or putting their talents in that way, unless there's something again I'm missing, but that's going to be a huge way to get that haste for everybody.
Yeah, I think I think everyone's planning on loading up on. I mean, if the min maxers, it looks like they're going unholy. So if you've got ourselves, we have 5 DKs in our raid, which is 1 more than a lot of other people, maybe even 2 more. But I've seen raids that don't even have a frost; they're bringing an enhancement instead, or if they're not bringing an enhancement, they're bringing 1 frost, but any other DKs that they're bringing that are like DPS, they're unholy. They're just expected to do that much more damage than frost.
Yeah, AOE damage too, as well.
Yeah, there's a big nice AOE grabs from the unholy tree for sure. That was just something that struck a chord in my mind because, like I said, my intention is to be able to tank, so I didn't look too much into the DPS aspect of the Death Knights. I just know that that buff is huge for the haste, and that's one of the reasons that you, as the blood decay, you're tanking, you're going into frost far enough to make sure you get that, because it's just that powerful, and it's a great buff for the rest of the team as well. Now, do you guys think that we're going to see any type of optimization to the point where in Classic you had, you need 1 shaman and stack 25 brown boys into the raid team? Is there going to be a class that's going to be that filler class that's going to fill in to just be the biggest damage, or do you think a lot of people are just going to kind of take what their guild provides as far as bodies or what their friends are playing, or do you think that there's going to be any kind of major meta that's going to be impactful enough to fill in those just DPS slots?
I think you're going to see people or raid compositions kind of fluctuate over the course of each phase. So when you start, like in phase 1, Fury Warriors are not going to be that good, but as they get geared up, they're going to be tremendous. So you're going to see raids, particularly a lot of really the hardcore raids, I guess you'd want to call them, the really sweaty guys, they're gonna only have one warrior in the entire raid, and that's gonna be your arms warrior. Over the course of time, especially once you get to Ice Crown Citadel, I would not be surprised to see raids with 5 warriors in them. Like they're going to start stacking Fury warriors because they just become absolutely insane towards the end. I think a lot of raids, like I was saying before, you can get all of your buffs, but with 12 or 14 players in your raid. When we were making our raid comp and deciding how we wanted to form it, we wanted to have like a 26, maybe even a 27-man roster. I think you're going to see people carrying extra DKs because no matter what, you can just slot them in. If we've got an extra 2 DKs, if a warlock can't make it for raid, just slide in a DK. If another DPS can't make it, you can just slide in a DK. I think you're going to see people stacking DKs as much as they can to begin with, or warlocks. But the great thing about DKs is they can take a beating, whereas a clothy, they'll just get slapped and they just press W and they just keep going. So
yeah, that they definitely bring a lot to the table as far as that goes. And if you're looking for a filler, there are tons of Death Knights around. Like, that's huge. And the other thing you're going to offer is, with so many people having multiple characters now, back in the day, a lot of people only had, like, oh, what's your main? Like, now people are like, what's your main? That's just the class you say is your designated main. Most people play a variety of classes a lot, so you end up with someone like Flamestryket's got 7 hunters that are all his main. No, it's but the reality is you're also going to have the ability of your guild. So if you're running like a guild that's got lots of people and you've got multiple, maybe 2 25-man raids or whatever, or whatnot, you can now take and even split some of those characters up, and you've now got tanks or DPS for different raids. Or if you've got to be doing your 10-mans, you can split those guys off with dual spec, and they can switch to something that's going to be more advantageous to tanking and being able to do those things. Now, do you think that's something that just struck me too, is like the dual spec thing is really nice for situations like that, and players being able to fill in roles and tasks that they may be needed when someone's not there. I think that's another great little aspect, and that can alter the way people maintain their guild and raid rosters. Is what dual purpose do you offer? When I had people come to me, they said, well, what should we play? And I said, well, I always tell people, play what's going to be fun for you ultimately, but at the end of the day, what's the most valuable? If you look at it, you're like, well, you could be a druid because you can heal, you can tank, and you can DPS. You can do all those things. Same thing. You want to be a pally, right? According to the, what I've seen up is pallies are going to be the buku tank, and then you're going to have DKs, and you're going to have druids, and you're going to have warriors, kind of in that order. Are they all able to do the jobs? Yes, but you're going to have ones that are slightly better. But at the same time, playing something that has the ability to heal, tank, DPS, which again is Paladin, also is a great option for players that want to make sure that they're needed or able to fill in a role within the raid setting that their guild may need, or be able to take part in a secondary raid with alts or additional characters that players have, where I think we might primarily focus on we're going to focus mostly on 10-man stuff with a smaller group that we're playing with. But at the same time, I would like to have a situation where we might be able to run, multiple 10-man raids, because I have multiple characters. Flame's got multiple characters. I know other people out there that have multiple characters that could be interested in that. But all that said, that's just kind of the take on the value of a player's ability to fill in different roles for whatever their guild may or may not be doing. I don't know if any of you guys have any additional thoughts or comments on.
We've talked to our raiders, particularly the ones that have dual specs that they can play a different role. So, I mean, me playing a mage on DPS, I can play Frost, I can play Arcane, I can play Fire, but I'm just DPS. But the thing that we've talked to all of our DKs about is we're going to need them to carry at least, carry a not maybe to the raid, but get a tanking set together, specifically a couple of them that we know would be quality tanks if we were in a pinch. One of the problems that we had in TBC is we'd have a tank that was out for like 2 weeks or something like that. We'd have to pug a tank or something like that. We didn't want to have to deal with having to worry about pugging a tank particularly tanks, going into Wrath. So we basically told the people that were wanting to swap to DKs that, this is kind of the condition that we're looking for. If you're wanting to swap, that's fine. But, play, do you want to play Unholy? Do you want to play Frost? Okay, great. But we need you to carry to be prepared to tank if we need you to as well. So same as healers. Your paladins, they can, if a lot of raids, they're going to be deciding whether they want 4 healers or if they want 5. A great option is to carry, a shaman that can dual spec and play DPS for some fights, or if you need that 5th healer or him to focus on healing, they can do that as well. Some raids will carry a shaman that is just spec down to. I mean, this is a thought that I had. They might
what
just
about a ret
spec down to
paladin
Mountide
versus holy?
Yeah, but, I mean, if you're gonna drop one of your healers, you're probably gonna drop one that's. I mean, your holy paladins are your best healers in raids, but quite easily. So I don't know that you're gonna drop your top healers to be DPSing. You might drop like a shaman or something like that, or I'm sure there'll be other
I meant
thoughts as
carrying
well.
a ret paladin and using the ret paladin as a healer if you're stuck in a 5th situation.
I mean, I think most raids are going to be carrying 4 paladins anyways, and one of them is going to be ret because they give the buff as well. So you want that ret there for their particular buff. So I don't know that you're going to have them swap to healing, because then you'd lose that buff unless you're carrying 2 ret paladins, which I guess could possibly be the case.
I think some of that's going to be what guild players have to offer, and seeing how each group's the min maxing becomes a little bit different then too when you have so many variations on all these things. I mean, ultimately there will be a quote best, but I've always been an advocate of like bring the people that you enjoy playing with and learn to work together better, or help them get better if you need be, rather than bring the guy that does the most in the meters but you hate dealing with him. So that gives a lot of options for players to come along and fill roles that need to be done. I mean, even if oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you definitely want to, like I said before, you want to have those main buffs covered, and then fill the roster out with other people that are solid players that you get along, solid, dependable players that you get along with and want to raid with every week. So I wouldn't worry so much about whether or not you have 1 mage and 5 warlocks, or 2 mages and 4 warlocks. Just round out the rest of your raid with solid people.
Absolutely. The other thing that we're going to see that's is going to be an alteration is that we're going to have the ability to only run the given raids one 10-man access and one 25-man access per week. I think that was the last thing I had heard as far as the way that they were going to change or alter that. So you can either do 10 normal or 10 heroic, and you can do either 25-man normal or 25 heroic. You can't run the raid 4 times in a single week. It's something that
2 lockouts per week.
Yeah, that they're changing. And I my guess is, and part of the primary reason is everybody's essentially double dipping on getting access to more emblems and badges and stuff, and then also double dipping on the gear grabs. Even though some of them are not as good as the others, there's still comparable options in, if you're doing heroic 10-man and then regular 10-man, you could get 2 different trinkets or something. And that's also something I saw in a little bit of the itemization, is that they've made the trinkets specifically, you can't have the lower and the upper version worn at the same time. They're unique equip of that type. And
you can't stack the trinkets anymore yet.
Yeah, and that's something I think that is probably a good thing as a whole. I mean, you guys got any thoughts or weighing opinions on those?
They did say in the blue post that they may up the drops because of the lesser lockouts. So they haven't validated that yet if they're going to do it, but it would be a good thing because it will give more loot per boss for those two lockouts per week.
Alodar?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Blizzard does, because you are running the raids. I was happy when they made that announcement, because you're going to get to a point where you're just running, you're running those 4 raids, and then the second phase comes out, and you're still trying to run those 4 raids, and then also doing the new content and stuff like that. I know I've talked about this before. I know there's some people that would raid 7 nights a week, but then you've also got to be worried about. I mean, this is, as a guild leader, this is something I do worry about, and that's people like just burning out and just kind of churning the wheel of replacing players that are just not able to commit that amount of time. They want to do other things in the game and stuff like that too. There's some people that are just perfectly fine with just doing nothing but raiding 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
I personally am not one of those players.
You- Gotcha.
So,
Raj, you got any thoughts on the lockout alterations that they've done?
I would say it must be nice that raiders now won't have to worry that they're going to be spending their whole life pretty much raiding. Because like having just a 2 lockouts, so it's half the time that they'd be raiding in a week. Ultimately, I think it's a good decision that they've done it. Because I wouldn't want to be one of them guys that are raiding 7 days a week. Yeah, I just couldn't.
I think it's too much. I think it's a good thing that they did it, and not necessarily for the player time management so much as the just the sheer volume of things that are going to be going on in acquisition of gear and items, right? Like, so when you have a content creation or excuse me, a content patch where they've got something new that you get into, and it's like you're artificially limited in the progression of your group based on the number of people that are in the raid, based on the number of drops that are in the raid. So if each week you have 10 people and you go through and you get 10 drops, everybody gets 1 drop a week, quote unquote. In theory, you're not going to get it exactly, right? This is just a hypothetical. Now, if you go through that same raid and you get 1 drop, and then you go through the heroic and you all get 1 drop, you've now gotten 2. So you've increased the amount of items available to you, exponentially in that regard, because then you do 2 10s, 2 25s, and you've got so much more access. So now instead of getting 1 or 2 pieces a week, you're now suddenly jumping 3, 4, 5 pieces a week, and the value of the content becomes diminished much faster. So you go through the whole thing, and in a matter of 4 weeks you're fully geared out, or 3 weeks you're fully geared out. There's no real farm to that. There's no real, you just boom, you're done. And now people are like, oh, we want something else, rush the content. I think it's a good thing that they're limiting the lockouts to 1 of each versus 4 essentially a week. So I think it was a great change as well, that they're offering. So they've also got a big change here too, right? We mentioned Wintergrass briefly, and access to the Vault of Archivon as one of the rewards for the Wintergrass system. And maybe I kind of hand the reins to Flamestrike here, because I know he did a bunch of research on the way they're altering Wintergrass.
Yeah, so originally in Wrath, Wintergrass was an open zone where you basically every 3 hours you went and you did the instance, you did the run, and when, say, the winning faction was Horde, for 3 hours you get the lockout for Vault of Archivon. That's not the case now. In Wrath Classic, it's instanced. So it's pretty much going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be open 24/7 for anybody. Because if you're in one of the instance raids and your faction wins, then your entire faction on your server gets access to Vault of Archivon. But if there's an Alliance player in another instance on the same server, they also get access. So it's going to be open pretty much for everybody.
Yeah, as per our discussion too before, and that it just sounds like if anyone on your server happens to participate in it when it's open, and anyone, because there could be 100 different ones open, and instances of Wintergrasp open when it's live, and your members of your server could get dumped into any number of those, and if one of them happened to win, it's basically going to provide access to everybody on your server. So it's almost like they're just making it fully open to everyone all the time, is what it seems like. But at the same time, it's also, is that good or bad? I don't know. Do I really care whether it's open to everybody all the time? Not so much. Does it kind of take away from the initial concept of Winter's Grasp? Yes, because the idea was you wanted to go in there and work hard to gain access to the raid to get the other gear. And I think that's great, but at the same time, I don't want to be limited in my ability to do Winter's Grasp because there's too many people or not enough people. So it's nice that they're making it where you can queue up and you can go and do it, and you can always participate in it. So I guess that's going to be a factor in that. But the neat thing is, though, to get down to it, is when you get in the Vault of Archvon has essentially 4 bosses in it of different elemental types. You've got, stone, storm, flame, ice. All of them have respective abilities of that tree or that nature type or archetype or whatever you want to call it. And they drop tier 7 gear items, so you can actually get the gear items from there, certain ones, and you can get PvP items from them as well that have high resilience values and things like that. So I think it's kind of nice that there's a little bit of variety there. You've got a PvP encounter that's going to give you access to both PvE, PvP gear, and I think it's going to be nice that you're going to be able to participate in it and not necessarily be limited on a server. And now let me back this up too. This goes back to our server population discussion earlier, where we're saying like, well, some of the servers are 99% horde and everybody's there and there's no one to fight, so you wouldn't even get to do Winter's Grasp, which would just always be basically a default win for your faction, and the other faction would never have a chance at it. Now it's going to allow servers that are screwed up populations to have access to those raid bits as well.
Yeah, and like they were saying in chat, there is also a 3-seater mammoth PvP mount in Vault, I think, that drops as well.
I missed that.
I think Blizzard will continue to have a look to see what's develops with the Wintergrass after the launch. I think they're experimenting with how it's going to go, because obviously it wasn't like that originally. And there's still I think there's still a few questions of how it's going to work. I don't think anyone at the moment knows truly what's going to happen with it. I think it's something that we're just going to have to keep an eye on when it comes to getting VOA and stuff like that. But
I think the one disadvantage to it, in my opinion, as like a classic Andy, is Wintergrasp is an event that your faction goes against the opposite faction, and if you win, you get control of it.
I'm sorry. I gotta stop you real quick. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. It's never been Horde against Alliance. Okay, that's just something I needed you to know.
Right.
Sorry, that's some crap. That's some crap
It's
they
okay.
said from Dragonflight. I had to throw that in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about
It's
here?
never been Horde against Alliance. It's always yeah. That's some
No.
Yeah,
horse
it's Friends
crap.
of Humanity versus Friends of Humanity, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I
But-
totally sidetracked you.
It's okay. It's okay. No, it's fine. You do that a lot. But
Fine,
it's one of
sure.
those things where I preferred it when, even if it was unbalanced, to be honest, I preferred it being the faction that wins it controls it. But I mean, I understand that there's a lot of imbalance out there, and there's a lot of servers that don't have a lot of people on them. That's not my problem. I mean, if you go to a server that's 99% Horde and 1% Alliance, and your Alliance, I'm sorry, but you're never going to get into Winter's Grasp. This to me is like a watering down to make it, feasible for everybody to get access. And I understand it. I understand why they're doing it. I just wish that they didn't give it to everybody in the entire server. If you get in an instance version for 3 hours, your faction controls it, and your faction. It should be like, for example, if there's 20 instances going on and the Horde win 19 of them, then the Horde should get access, and the Alliance shouldn't. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's a completely understandable position too. I mean, like, to make it, if you made it for your guild, we've got a chat commenting, if your guild got access based on your participation, that would make a lot more sense than making the entire server. Because the thing is, ultimately, like, yes, everybody wants to get access because it allows you an opportunity to get additional gear from the PvE content in there. But I don't believe there's nothing that's earth-shattering in there that, and again, I didn't do a fully inclusive review of the loot, but I think most of the stuff in there is accessible from other places as well. If you can get the tier pieces, they can get them from the raid drops, from the the Nax or the other dragons and things like that. But this is just kind of a bonus opportunity to get items, I think, as when I kind of
Yeah,
look
don't
at
forget,
it.
we're starting with the last patch, 3.3.5 as well, so it's going to be a lot different.
True. So,
I know, just quickly, I know we talked about this briefly earlier on, before the thing. I wish Blizzard would have looked outside the box a little bit and maybe ripped off Guild Wars 2 with the way Guild Wars does their server versus server. Anyone that's played Guild Wars 2 and done the PvP there, it's absolutely fantastic, where they have server versus server battlegrounds, literally hundreds of people on each side, spread throughout 4 different instances, trying to control different maps over the course of a week. I think they could have taken something like that and allowed servers to actually compete against each other for ultimate bragging rights. I think there's always that discussion of, what servers are better for PvP. Fairlina thinks it's them. Benediction thinks it's them. I think it would. I know it's a change from what Wintergrasp is or what it provides, but they're changing it so much anyways. I honestly think maybe something like that would have been kind of interesting to see as well. And again, this is coming from someone that is pretty much a staunch no changes guy, but I think something like that might have been kind of interesting. Borg's in chat saying it would have been awesome. Anyone that ever experienced the world versus world or server versus server stuff in Guild Wars 2 can attest that it was absolutely possibly some of the best PvP that I've experienced. Some of the most fun PvP wise that I've experienced since I started playing MMOs back in 1997. So it was a lot of fun.
That's kind of a neat concept. That'd be kind of difficult though too. You still have to do almost like a layered or multi-access system, because when you look at the sheer number of people and characters on a given server, having a single winner's grasp for your server, right? If it's just the first 40 guys or 50 or 120 guys that sign up, and it's like your 3 derp guilds that suddenly locked in there, and you're like, why are the most undergeared terrible players representing us in this thing? You would still have some kind of some background things I think that would need to happen. I think the server versus server is kind of a cool concept when you put it out like that. But I still think that the way to do it may be still did your guild participate and did a member of your guild win, and then you get that. But I have no idea how that would work in the mechanical background of creating it. It may just be like a logistical problem to even do something like that. But it's a cool concept.
Yeah, like Turkey's saying, Doc, it would be cool to see Benny versus Fairlina, Mankrik versus Pagel. That would be amazing to see that in Wintergrasp.
Well, it'd be cool for Fairlina, not for all the rest of the servers. We'd stomp everyone. So. But I don't think it would be that hard for them to set it up, to be honest, because you just have to basically put everyone that's signing up for Fairlina onto one team. I'm not even saying that it would have to be like Fairlina Horde versus Alliance or Benediction Alliance. It could be just Horde versus Alliance, or Fairlina like Horde and Alliance on one team, and against Benediction, Horde, and Alliance. I know there's not much Horde on Benediction. There's not much Alliance on Fairlina, but it would be basically just one server versus the other. You're gonna have the halls open anyways, 24/7. So just make them open 24/7 and just have it server versus server and have at it, and allow Fairlina to have the bragging rights that we so rightfully deserve.
Oh my! I'm glad you're on the Horde. All this smack, man. I told you I gotta get maybe I gotta get my community convinced me to come over and make a PvP tune on the server you're on, so we can run around stomping people together at some point.
Yeah.
Start on a new server that's low pop Horde, and
not a
kick
chance.
butt and take names.
Let me ask you guys, if any of you guys have any kind of items or honorable mention subjects that you wanted to bring up here, because if you had something we didn't discuss, I'd love to hear about it, gentlemen, and after that we can move on to an open question section with everybody from chat.
I think the only thing that we talked about it sort of earlier was the queues seemed to be a lot better the last couple of days. So I was getting, I think we were all pretty worried about, our last raid, our queue times for our last raid on last Tuesday was like 4 hours long.
Hey,
so,
what's a queue?
No, well, I don't know. I queued up from the beach. 3.5 hours before I had to be on for raids, so I have no idea. But
no idea what you're talking about. I haven't seen a queue on my server at all.
But there was always that problem of that one or two people who suddenly they got booted out of queue and had to restart. And like we had one that it was our one of our holy paladins. Suddenly he got booted out of queue and he wasn't gonna make raid. Like we were done both.
Has the same ISP I do.
Yeah. Actually, I think he does live over near you. I'm not sure, but anyways.
Oh, that's terrible.
He, so we were happy to. I mean, yesterday I was kind of bouncing back and forth between Sky Fury and Fairlena, and this is at 5 o'clock in the evening. I was like, okay, I'm gonna log on to Fairlena and jump into queue, and there was no queue, and I was like, what the heck? So I then that same account I logged out and logged on to Sky Fury because I've got two different characters on there. There was no queue, and then I was talking about it on stream, and people were telling me that they're on Benediction. They have no queue as well. So hopefully they've sorted stuff out. People have said that Blizzard has banned a bunch of bots, and that's the reason why. But I don't believe that's the case, because even if they banned all the bots, the botting companies would just make new accounts and they would be right back into queue on level 1 characters. So
Yep.
They must have done something to do
I think
with
the big
queues.
thing they did. The big thing they did was they opened up free faction changes to a brand new unlisted server for Benediction and a couple of other servers. So you can't make tunes there unless you're a transfer. And Barrick moved his Paladin from Benediction to this new server. I forget what it's called anyway. And it's 50-50. Like it's like 52% Alliance, 48% Horde. And you can't make a tune there unless you transfer.
Yeah,
so
what was
cool.
What was that, Raz?
Blizzard must have done something to do with the queues. If there was literally no queues yesterday for both Benediction and Fairlena.
Yeah, I think
yeah, Turkey, thanks.
The transfers, I think, have made a dramatic
impact.
I've heard as much as 40,000 an hour at one point that they had people transferring off character-wise.
Yeah, so that obviously that would have made an impact. Whether it's going to stay like that, I don't know. But I'm fearful for the queues when it's actually launch day.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna. They're definitely gonna be back. There's no way that there won't be queues on launch day for sure. I expect the first several weeks of raiding there'll probably be queues as well. So
yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Hopefully they're gonna keep the free transfers available until after the actual content launch, and then see where people are, because even if people are not getting queues right now because maybe they've completed a lot of the things that they wanted to do and they're just kind of waiting. At this point, they're not logging on as often. That can also be reflective in whether there's queues or not. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So I guess I'd like to take an opportunity now, if you gentlemen don't have anything further, is to ask chat. I know we try to answer a couple of things along the way. If any of you guys have questions about any of the stuff we discussed, and or something you might want us to reiterate or discuss further, feel free to bring that up now, and I'll just give that a brief moment here. And I do want to mention that we had mentioned a Nixie earlier as a raid. It does become one, but it's actually listed under a tier 9, not the tier 7, so that's not something that's going to be available for us right out of the gate. And most of the stuff we were trying to discuss this evening was just around the tier 7 and that level of content. So we'll just throw that out there, as far as that goes, anyway. But so what happens after Wrath? Well, that's a great question. A lot of people, I think you wanted to discuss this point just briefly, but some of you gentlemen may know this or may not know this, and some of you in chat may or may not know this. But Blizzard recently actually put out some type of request or survey of information for the potential of a Cataclysm Classic, which I adamantly,
oh hell no,
for months, so it's like they would be morons to do it. It'd be so dumb, it's stupid. Like the original trilogy is the farthest I think they should go. They shouldn't go any further than that. It's just going to be a bad idea, etc., etc., etc. And one of the reasons I think it's just is a terrible idea is because most people, and I think gentlemen, this may be a point to weigh in on here, is that the mechanics and the way the game functions in Wrath of the Lich King is essentially the beginning of the end. The way they designed the interactions, looking for groove, the systems that are in there, that it basically starts to look more like retail, current retail, than it does classic at about now. What do you gentlemen think?
Yeah,
100%.
Whole,
I'd like each of you to weigh in on the Kata thing, and then weighing in on the view of the game at this point. Go ahead, Flame.
Well, I think Kata, to be honest, in its initial state was the beginning of the end for me. It turns from classic to retail. At the end of Wrath to the beginning of Kata, to me, became a totally different type of game. The social aspect was gone. It just went to the dregs of society after that, and the content for me was super boring. I never had any fun in Kata. I mean, I did it, but I didn't enjoy it at all, and it wasn't like Wrath or like TBC or any of the previous expansions because you got to play with your friends. I remember going to Cata dungeons and joining groups and not knowing anybody and nobody saying a word to you, and the next thing you know, you're kicked out of the group because you didn't have whatever item level or whatever gear score or whatever DPS that they wanted, and you get kicked. So
Yeah, but that started in Wrath though.
it does start in Wrath, and that's the beginning of the end, like I said. So.
Um,
They're trying to alleviate that a bit. I hope they do. I hope they don't put the vote kick system in. I hope they just make it right. But I think the big problem is a lot of people associate Cata as retail, and I do.
Fair enough. Thanks, sir.
The thing
what do you think?
The thing I'm thinking of is it's quite strange, and I watched Stay Safe video about this. Why have they decided to do the survey now before Wrath's even out? They're doing it pretty early compared to the TBC one, the survey. It makes you think I don't even think they know what they're doing. Yeah.
You know the funny thing, Raz, about the survey too, was it was very misleading. They ask you about every other game. Like, would you consider playing this game? Would you consider playing that game? Whatever. Everything but WoW. And it was the last question on the survey that says, how do you feel about Cata Classic? That's what got me.
Well, I think one of the reasons why why they were putting the survey out now is the classic community is kind of its own little. It's its own little community. There are reasons why they don't like, as a whole, why they don't like Cataclysm, and I think they're putting this survey out now because they want to find out exactly what it was that bothers classic players about Cataclysm, and maybe look to eliminate some of those things right off the bat. So, like, I believe, again, I'm not sure which expansion, but I believe Raid Finder came in Cataclysm, if I'm not mistaken, or I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, it came in the last patch, I believe.
So the last major phase, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that the classic community just can't stand. And I know a lot of retail players will be like, oh, it's, like, I don't want to turn this into a classic versus retail players, but it's just one of the things that classic players don't like because it removes the social aspect of the game. And, people aren't reliant on guilds and community of friends and all that sort of stuff. They just kind of put themselves into a queue, wait to see who they group up with. And that's why a lot of people don't like Dungeon Finder as well.
Let me ask.
The one thing that I did like about Cataclysm, though, is that was the first expansion where they brought in rated battlegrounds, and I think that's a fantastic system. And again, I hate any changes to vanilla. Like, I'm not for Classic Plus or anything like that. I would gladly play fresh vanilla if they, after Wrath. In fact, I will be playing fresh vanilla one way or the other if they don't come out with fresh vanilla, whether I play it on a private server. I think private servers are going to become a major thing again. If they don't come out with a fresh vanilla, you're going to see private servers pop up again like crazy. I would think it would be funny if a private server actually popped up on the exact same day as Cata launch. It would be actually interesting to see. But if they're going to make any changes to like a Classic Plus vanilla, I wouldn't mind seeing something like rated battlegrounds. Because then, you're pitting your guild against other guilds for ultimate bragging rights. I do think that mechanic is the one thing that I liked about Cataclysm that I would not mind seeing in classic versions of the game. That doesn't seem like a
difficult thing to implement. Like, you just
it wouldn't be
a rated queue. Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
What about the revamp of the old world and the flying Alodar? Since you're
I hated what they did to the old world. Like, I get when I played retail, I would just get angry every time I flew over 1,000 Needles. I don't even like questing particularly in 1,000 Needles in Classic. I do it. It's not one of my most hated areas. But even flying over the Barrens, where there's like that one strip of area where
splitch,
it's I just hate it. So
it's like wrecking your first car, even though it was a piece of crap, you still liked it before you wrecked it.
Yeah, when they changed the zones, obviously Baron's chart that went.
Well,
yeah.
I think the other big thing was they wanted more alliance presence in the Barrens, so they split it to give them opportunity, and I think that was totally wrong.
Well,
Yeah.
it's Oh, go ahead, Rez.
No, I was just agreeing with Flame.
I was gonna say that definitely changed the way the game looks, and that change definitely impacts a lot of classic players because it impacted a lot of classic areas of the game, I think, too. So,
It- When did they change that? Was it? So I just saw in chat. Was it in Cataclysm where they changed the talent trees to be, instead of talent trees, it was just like you selected between one of three talents.
Yeah,
Each.
yeah, it was
Is that
Cat.
Yeah, it was dog shit.
Yeah. Then I hate that as well.
There's one good thing that I liked about Cataclysm. They got rid of mana for hunters. That was the only thing
Yeah,
I
it went to
liked.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I liked.
well,
Yeah, but they brought in that stupid barrage, which was the worst thing they ever did.
Yeah.
I don't even like the new races. I totally forgot like Worgans and Goblins were introduced in Cata 2, weren't they?
Yeah.
That should never be there either.
So
excellent, gentlemen. Well, it sounds like we can all agree none of us are real big fans of anything that Cataclysm has to offer, especially coming from the classic community. But, gentlemen, I really appreciate everybody's, thoughts and input on the discussion here this evening. Chat, thank you all very, very much. What I'd like to do is give an opportunity for these gentlemen to tell everybody out there where they can find you on all of your socials, whatnot. Feel free to shout out anything you'd like for yourself here and everybody that's out watching, or if you're hearing this live, or excuse me, if you're watching live or you're hearing this on a recording from either YouTube or Spotify, please go ahead and drop all these gentlemen a follow or check them out, or feel free to bring up any of this conversation with them in their streams and content, or myself. Go ahead, gents.
I stream 6 nights a week on Twitch, full-time stream on Twitch from Tuesdays through Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern. And you can also catch me on YouTube as well. I post videos. Alodar, sorry. Twitch.tv/Alodar. My name is Alodar. And you can find me on Twitch and on YouTube. And through those channels, you can also find my Twitter, Instagram, etc., all those socials as well. So
Excellent.
You can find me twitch.tv /RazzeronTV. I stream 4 nights a week, starting 3 p.m. EST, I think it is, because I'm in the UK. So, yeah, you can find me there. You can find my Twitter, which is also RazzeronTV. And I just do WoW Classic. That's all I stream pretty much. I do one variety day with different games, but yeah.
Flamestrike?
Yep, it's Flamestrike. You can catch me at twitch.tv/Flamestrike. I stream 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6 p.m. EDT to 11 p.m. EDT. I do the odd weekend stream, usually on Sundays on non-F1 weekends. And all my social media, it's Flamestrike on Twitch or Flamestrike TV on all other social media.
And as most of you know, as we're here on my channel, Docken_TV on YouTube, Twitch, everywhere, Insta, Snapchat, Twitter, all that good stuff. I really appreciate everybody, and thank you guys for being here. And we'll see you guys in the next show.